There are moments when the silence is so loud that it shakes your bones. Moments when you have prayed until your lips grew dry and your heart grew tired. Moments when you have waited so long that hope itself feels like a memory. But hear this with every fiber of your soul, God's timing is about to make you cry, not tears of pain, not tears of regret, but tears so heavy with relief and awe that you will struggle to explain them to anyone who's not walked the valley you have walked. I am not speaking to the casual listener. I am speaking to the one who has been holding on by a thread, the one who had whispered prayers at night when no one could hear, the one who has wondered if God saw, if God remembered, if God cared. You have stood at doors that did not open. You have watched opportunities slip through your fingers. You have seen others receive what you begged God for, and you told yourself you were strong, but deep inside something cracked. You smiled when you were breaking. You said, I trust God, while your heart was wrestling with fear. Yet even now, with questions pounding in your chest, God has not abandoned you. God has not delayed because of cruelty. God has not forgotten because of distraction. God has been preparing a moment so precise, so intentional, so perfectly aligned with who you are becoming, that when it finally unfolds, your knees will weaken and your eyes will overflow. God's timing is not slow, it is surgical. God does not rush miracles, because rush miracles often break what they are meant to bless. God works in layers you cannot see. While you were counting days, God was shaping character. While you were measuring years, God was strengthening endurance. While you were asking for answers, God was building capacity so you would not collapse under the weight of the very thing you asked for. You thought the delay was punishment, but the delay was protection. You thought the waiting was rejection, but the waiting was refinement. There are seasons when God intentionally withholds what you desire because receiving it too early would destroy you. You do not give a child a burden meant for a grown soul. You do not place a crown on a head that has not learned humility. God understands timing because God understands consequence. When God says wait, it is not because God enjoys your pain. It is because God sees what is coming next. And God refuses to let the blessing ruin you. Some of you are still trying to figure out why things fell apart the way they did. You replay conversations in your mind. You revisit decisions. You wonder what would have happened if you had moved sooner, spoken louder, stayed longer, left earlier. But God is not asking you to live in the past. God is asking you to trust the process. What you call loss, God calls separation. What you call delay, God calls alignment. What you call the end, God calls repositioning. There is a reason God removed certain people from your life. There is a reason God allowed doors to close so abruptly that you did not even have time to say goodbye. Some connections could not go where God is taking you. Some voices would have poisoned your confidence. Some environments would have suffocated your faith. God did not break your heart to harm you. God broke your heart to save you from a future that looked good, but would have cost you everything. You have been asking God for clarity, but God has been asking you for trust. You have been asking God for signs, but God has been asking you for surrender. You have been asking God to explain the journey, but God has been asking you to take the next step without knowing the whole map. Faith is not built on explanations. Faith is built on obedience. And obedience, when it is costly, when it is lonely, when it is misunderstood, is the very thing that positions you for a breakthrough, so overwhelming that it leaves you undone. God's timing is about to make you cry because the weight of what is coming will collide with the memory of what you survived. You will remember nights when you thought you would not make it. You will remember days when you felt invisible. You will remember prayers that felt like they vanished into the ceiling. And then, suddenly, God will move in a way that makes it undeniable that every tear was counted, every sigh was heard, Every act of faith was recorded. You must understand this: God is never late. God arrives at the exact moment when the lesson is complete, when the preparation is finished, when the foundation is strong enough to hold what is coming. If God had moved sooner, you would have taken the credit. If God had answered earlier, you would have relied on your strength. But God waited until there was no doubt that only God could have done it. That is why the miracle will not just bless you, it will humble you. It will not just elevate you, it will soften you. It will not just change your situation, it will change your posture. There are people listening who feel exhausted from being strong. You are tired of encouraging yourself. You are tired of telling yourself that tomorrow will be better. You are tired of being the one who believes when everyone else has stopped. But hear this truth: your exhaustion is not a sign of failure. It is evidence of endurance. You would not be this tired if you had not come this far. You would not feel this pressure if you were not close to a release. The greatest strain comes just before the breakthrough. The heaviest burden often appears moments before God lifts it. God's timing is about to make you cry, because what is coming will restore more than you lost. God does not merely replace, God multiplies. God does not simply heal, God transforms. God does not just open a door, God creates a new path where there was none. You may have lost time, but God redeems time. You may have lost strength, but God renews strength. You may have lost confidence, but God restores identity. You have been underestimated. You have been misunderstood. You have been spoken against in rooms you were not invited into. But God has been present in every conversation. God has been aware of every injustice. God has been silent, not because God agreed, but because God was preparing a response that would silence every accusation without you saying a word. Vindication is not loud, it is undeniable. And when God vindicates, even those who doubted will have no choice but to acknowledge the hand of God. Do not confuse quiet seasons with empty seasons. Some of the most important work God does happens in silence. Roots grow in darkness. Strength develops in resistance. Faith deepens in uncertainty. God often removes noise so you can hear what truly matters. God often strips away distractions so you can see clearly. God often allows loneliness so you can discover that God alone is sufficient. There is a breaking that feels like destruction, but it is actually preparation. God breaks pride so humility can grow. God breaks self-reliance so trust can be established. God breaks illusions so truth can stand. When you felt shattered, God was rearranging you. When you felt empty, God was creating space. When you felt forgotten, God was focusing attention on you in a way you could not yet perceive. God's timing is about to make you cry, because the answer you receive will be better than the one you asked for. You prayed for one thing, but God saw a deeper need. You asked for relief, but God planned restoration. You asked for escape, but God prepared transformation. God does not think in moments, God thinks in futures. God does not operate on urgency, God operates on eternity. Some of you are standing at the edge of doubt, wondering if you should keep believing. You are tempted to lower your expectations so you will not be disappointed again. You are tempted to call your prayers unrealistic, your hope naive. But God is not limited by what you see. God is not intimidated by statistics, history, or probability. God specializes in the impossible, not to impress you, but to remind you who is in control. You have been through things that should have destroyed you. You have endured pressures that should have crushed you. Yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still reaching toward God. That alone is proof that God's hand has been on you. Survival is not accidental. Preservation is not random. God has kept you because God is not finished with you. When God moves, it will not require you to force it. You will not have to manipulate circumstances. You will not have to beg people. You will not have to compromise your integrity. What God brings will come with peace. What God opens will not come with confusion. What God gives will not require you to lose yourself to keep it. The blessing of God does not come wrapped in anxiety. It comes anchored in assurance. There is a shift coming that you cannot rush, but you can prepare for. Preparation does not mean perfection. Preparation means humility. It means staying teachable. It means guarding your heart, even when it is tired. It means choosing faith, even when fear feels more logical. God does not ask you to understand the timing. God asks you to trust the one who controls it. You may feel behind, but you are not late. You may feel overlooked, but you are not forgotten. You may feel delayed, but you are not denied. God's calendar is not like yours. God does not measure success the way the world does. God values obedience over speed, faithfulness over applause, depth over visibility. When the moment arrives, it will make sense why you had to wait. You will see how every disappointment redirected you. You will understand how every closed door protected you. You will recognize how every delay matured you. And in that realization, tears will come not because of what you lost, but because of what God prevented and what God prepared. God's timing is about to make you cry because joy hits differently when it follows endurance. Peace feels deeper when it comes after chaos. Gratitude grows stronger when it is born from struggle. You will not take this blessing lightly. You will not waste this opportunity. You will not forget where you came from, because the memory of the valley will keep you humble on the mountain. Some of you have been praying the same prayer for years. You have wondered if repeating it was foolish. You have worried that silence meant refusal. But repetition is not unbelief. Repetition is persistence. God honors persistence because persistence reveals priority. What you keep bringing to God is what matters most to you, and God does not ignore the cries of a sincere heart. There are lessons you could only learn in the waiting. Compassion was forged in disappointment. Wisdom was shaped in uncertainty. Strength was built in weakness. If God had answered immediately, you would have missed the growth that now qualifies you to handle the answer. The wait did not disqualify you, it trained you. God's timing is about to make you cry, because what is coming will touch places in your heart that have been dormant. Hope you thought was gone will awaken. Dreams you buried for survival will rise again. Confidence you lost will return, not as arrogance, but as quiet assurance rooted in God's faithfulness. You will look back and realize that God was with you even when you felt alone. God was guiding you even when you felt lost. God was speaking even when you could not hear. Silence was not absence. Silence was instruction in another form. God was teaching you to listen with your spirit, not just your expectations. Do not compare your journey to anyone else's. Comparison distorts perspective. God custom designs timing because God custom designs purpose. What someone else receives quickly might not sustain you. What someone else handles easily might overwhelm you. God knows you better than you know yourself, and God's timing reflects that intimate knowledge. There is a holy confidence that rises when you finally understand that waiting did not weaken you, it refined you. You did not miss your moment. Your moment is being prepared to meet you. God is aligning people, circumstances, and opportunities in ways you cannot yet see, but you will feel when it happens. You will sense it before you fully understand it. God's timing is about to make you cry because the peace that comes with it will silence every doubt you ever had. Questions will fade in the presence of clarity. Fear will shrink in the presence of fulfillment, and gratitude will overflow, not because life is perfect, but because you will know beyond any uncertainty that God kept every promise in the way God intended. You are closer than you think, not because of effort, not because of merit, but because of grace. God's grace has carried you through confusion, sustained you through delay, and protected you through disappointment. Grace is what fills the gap between what you can do and what God has already decided to do. Hold on a little longer. Not with desperation, but with expectation. Not with anxiety, but with trust. The same God who brought you through what you never thought you would survive is the God who is orchestrating what you never thought you would experience. And when it happens, when the timing finally unfolds, when the door opens without resistance, when the answer arrives without explanation, when the weight lifts without warning, you will understand why it could not have happened any other way, why it could not have happened sooner, why it had to happen exactly when God chose. Because God's timing does not just change circumstance. It reveals truth, it confirms faith, it restores the soul, and it leaves you standing in awe, overwhelmed by the realization that every tear, every prayer, every moment of waiting was woven into something far greater than you imagined, something only God could have planned, something that meets you right where you are and carries you forward into what has been prepared, not rushed, not forced, not delayed by mistake, but released at the precise moment. When your heart, your faith, and your future were ready to receive what God has ordained. God's timing does not consult human impatience, nor does it bow to human pressure. God moves with intention that transcends emotion, culture, and expectation. When you feel forgotten, it is not because God has turned away. It is because God is working beyond what your eyes can measure. There are seasons when God hides the outcome so that faith, not sight, becomes your strength. If you could see everything God was arranging, you would not grow. You would rush, interfere, and depend on certainty instead of trust. God knows how fragile the human heart can become when disappointment stacks upon disappointment. That is why God does not reveal the full weight of what is coming all at once. God prepares you in portions, strengthening you step by step, layer by layer, until your spirit is steady enough to carry joy without fear and success without pride. The delay you resent today will one day be the reason you stand unshaken when blessings arrive. You have mistaken the quiet for abandonment. But God often speaks loudest when life grows silent. Noise distracts, but stillness sharpens awareness. God removes constant movement so you can discern direction. God removes constant affirmation so you can learn self-worth rooted in truth, not approval. God removes constant comfort so you can discover resilience you never knew you possessed. There are battles you never saw because God fought them before they reached you. There were failures that never happened because God intervened without announcement. There were wrong paths that looked promising, yet God blocked them without explanation. You call it delay, but God calls it mercy. You call it confusion, but God calls it guidance. What feels like loss is often divine prevention unfolding quietly. God's timing is about to make you cry because you will finally understand why you were protected from certain desires. Some things you wanted would have demanded too much of your peace. Some dreams you chased would have required you to compromise your integrity. Some relationships you begged to keep would have drained your spirit. God does not always deny because something is bad. Sometimes God denies because something is not best. You are not being punished by waiting. You are being trained. God uses time to reveal motives, expose weaknesses, and purify intention. Waiting strips away entitlement and replaces it with gratitude. Waiting removes arrogance and replaces it with humility. Waiting transforms expectation into reverence. By the time the answer arrives, you will not demand it, you will receive it with awe. There is a sacred strength that forms when you learn to trust God without a deadline. Faith that depends on timing is fragile. Faith anchored in God's nature is unbreakable. God has never failed, never miscalculated, never acted without purpose. The same God who ordered creation with precision orders your life with equal care, even when the process feels disorderly. You may feel invisible to people, but you are fully known by God. God sees the effort that no one applauds. God hears prayers whispered in exhaustion. God recognizes sacrifices made in secret. Nothing done in faith is wasted. Nothing endured with trust is forgotten. God's memory is perfect, and God's justice is precise. God's timing is about to make you cry, because what is coming will arrive with clarity that erases confusion. You will no longer question whether it is real or right. Peace will confirm what words cannot. Alignment will replace straying. When God moves, there is no need to force agreement. Everything settles naturally into place. Some of you have learned patience the hard way, through disappointment and endurance rather than comfort. But that patience has become wisdom. You now recognize the difference between urgency and importance, between desire and destiny. God allowed time to teach you discernment so that when the moment comes, you will recognize it without doubt. Do not despise small beginnings or slow progress. God often builds quietly before revealing loudly. What grows unseen develops deeper roots. What forms slowly lasts longer. God values stability over speed because God thinks beyond moments and into generations. God's timing is about to make you cry because the weight of gratitude will overwhelm you. You will remember the fear that once consumed you and marvel at the calm that now surrounds you. You will remember how close you came to giving up and realize how close you were to breakthrough. That realization will humble you more than success ever could. You have been learning to let go of control, even when it frightened you. Control gives the illusion of safety, but trust gives real peace. God does not ask you to understand everything. God asks you to surrender the need to manage outcomes. When you release control, you make room for God's power to operate freely. God's timing is not influenced by pressure from others. People may rush you, question you, or criticize your pace, but God knows exactly where you should be and when. You are not behind schedule. You are exactly where growth required you to be. God does not compete with comparison. God completes purpose. The tears that come will not be only emotional. They will be spiritual. They will cleanse doubt, wash away bitterness, and soften places hardened by waiting. They will be tears of recognition when you finally see that God was present in every step, even the painful ones. You are stepping into a season where understanding replaces confusion, where trust replaces anxiety, where gratitude replaces resentment. God is not only changing your circumstances, God is reshaping your inner world so that peace becomes your foundation, not your reward. Stay faithful in what feels ordinary. Obedience in quiet moments prepares you for clarity in significant ones. God watches how you handle obscurity before granting visibility, how you manage a little before entrusting much, how you treat silence before allowing influence. God's timing is about to make you cry because the moment will arrive unexpectedly calm, not chaotic. You will realize that God was never rushed, never late, never uncertain. The same God who carried you through waiting will carry you into fulfillment with the same steady hand. You will stand in that moment, aware not only of what you received, but of who you became. Stronger without hardness, humble without insecurity, confident without arrogance. This is the work God does through time, shaping souls, not just situations. And when the tears come, they will fall without regret, without fear, without shame. They will be the release of years of trust, finally meeting fulfillment, the quiet acknowledgement that God's wisdom exceeded. Your understanding that God's patience outlasted your doubts, that God's plan unfolded exactly as it needed to, revealing not only provision, but purpose, not only answers, but alignment, not only relief, but reverence. As you realize that every step, every pause, every moment of waiting was held securely within the perfect, unshakable timing of God. God does not operate on impulse. God operates on intention. Every pause you endured carried purpose. Every unanswered prayer carried instruction. God was not delaying your life. God was developing your discernment. Some lessons cannot be taught quickly because depth requires time. God is more interested in who you are becoming than how fast you arrive, because arrival without preparation becomes collapse. There were moments when you wanted God to act immediately, to intervene suddenly, to change everything overnight. But sudden change without inner readiness creates confusion, not peace. God prepares the heart before changing the circumstance. God stabilizes the spirit before lifting the burden. That is why the weight felt heavy, because God was fortifying you against what would have overwhelmed you before. God sees beyond the surface of your prayers. You asked for relief, but God heard a deeper cry for stability. You asked for answers, but God recognized a need for trust. You asked for change, but God knew transformation had to begin within. God does not ignore what you ask. God completes what you truly need. There is a sacred maturity that only comes through waiting on God without bitterness. When resentment fades and trust remains, something powerful has formed. That is the moment God knows your heart is no longer driven by desperation, but guided by faith. Faith that has endured silence carries authority when the answer comes. You were tempted to believe that time was working against you, but time has been working for you under God's direction. Every delay filtered motives. Every setback clarified values. Every pause redirected focus. God was teaching you to value alignment over urgency, depth over display, purpose over appearance. God's timing is about to make you cry, because you will recognize how perfectly everything had to unfold. You will see how one change led to another, how one closed door protected the next opening, how one season of uncertainty prepared you for a season of clarity. What once felt disconnected will suddenly reveal a divine pattern. God does not rush what must last. Anything built in haste is vulnerable to collapse. God builds slowly so foundations are strong. When God establishes something, it is not fragile. When God opens a door, it does not require constant defense. What God provides comes with endurance, not anxiety. You were strengthened by disappointment. You were refined by uncertainty. You were shaped by seasons that forced you to rely on God alone. When support was limited and answers were scarce, faith deepened. God allowed isolation not to harm you, but to teach you where your strength truly comes from. God's silence did not mean absence. It meant focus. God was drawing your attention away from noise and toward truth. You learned to listen without signs, to believe without confirmation, to stand without applause. That kind of faith cannot be shaken by circumstance, because it is rooted in God's unchanging nature. There were days when you questioned your worth because progress felt invisible. But God never measures value by visibility. God measures faithfulness by consistency, not recognition. The work you did in private mattered more than the moments you wished were public. God records what others overlook. God's timing is about to make you cry, because the breakthrough will arrive with peace, not panic. You will not have to chase it. You will not have to prove yourself. You will not have to compromise. What God brings will recognize you because it was prepared for you. You are stepping into a season where fear no longer dictates decisions. Trust has replaced urgency. Wisdom has replaced impulse. God has used time to slow you down so clarity could catch up with you. Now you move with intention, not desperation. God has taught you how to wait without losing hope, how to trust without controlling outcomes, how to believe without demanding timelines. That kind of faith is rare, and God honors it. When God responds, it is not merely to fulfill a request, but to affirm a relationship built on trust. God's timing is about to make you cry because it will heal places you learned to live with broken. It will restore confidence you adjusted to losing. It will revive hope you convinced yourself to bury. God does not return things halfway restored. When God heals, the healing reaches the root. You will realize that the waiting season did not weaken you, it clarified you. You now know what matters and what does not. You now recognize peace as a priority, not a luxury. God used time to realign your desires with your destiny. There is a divine calm that settles when you stop racing against time and start resting in God's order. That calm is not passivity, it is assurance. Assurance that God is ahead of you, beside you, and within the unfolding of every detail you cannot yet see. God's timing is about to make you cry, because the release will feel gentle but powerful, quiet but undeniable. The shift will not announce itself with chaos. It will arrive with a deep inner knowing that this moment could not have come sooner or later, only now. You will understand that nothing was wasted. Not the patience, not the endurance, not the faith exercised when doubt was loud. God gathered every fragment of your journey and wove it into something complete. What once felt like endurance will become testimony. What once felt like delay will become wisdom. What once felt like silence will become confirmation. God was never withholding good, God was ensuring readiness. And as the tears fall, they will not fall from sorrow, but from recognition, the recognition that God's ways are higher, God's timing is flawless, and God's faithfulness has been steady through every season, shaping you, guarding you, preparing you for what arrives not by chance, not by force, but by the deliberate, perfect, and unshakable timing of God.